Jai Prabhuji. Hello and welcome to the Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. My name is Radha Devi and I am a monastic disciple of Prabhuji. We are discussing, exploring, and learning together the book Kundalini Yoga, The Power is in You by Prabhuji. In this occasion, we are going to delve into the Sadhana of the Kundalini Yoga. This is the third section of the book, but we are going to do a small twist. It's going to be a little bit different than our previous classes. For whoever followed the whole course, as you know, we are in very advanced stages, just one class before the end of our course. So we've been building together up to here. So this specific class, in which way is going to be different? Instead of focusing in the specific techniques that we find in regards to the sadhana of this path, what we're going to do is that we are going to get an overview of the attitude of the retroprogressive yoga towards sadhana. And for that, we are going to explore different texts where we find about the sadhana in different books of Prabhuji. We're going to take, besides Kundalini Yoga, of course, which is the book of our course, we're going to start with it, but then we're going to continue with Advaita Vedanta, then we're going to do Bhakti Yoga, Tantra, What is as it is, Experimenting with the Truth, and I Am That I Am. These are the books that we're going to see, which are going to give us different perspectives so we can have a much clearer picture of the attitude that we are providing, sharing in regards to the sadhana. And at the end, we're going to share very beautiful words from a lecture that is called Waiting with Open Doors, where I feel it's the culmination of the view in regards to sadhana. So let us start. Something else that I can share in regards to this topic is that for me it's very exciting, this opportunity that we can explore together in regards to what is sadhana. What is sadhana for? These are some of the questions that we're going to answer today. Why do I need to practice? For what? And it's a topic that is very close to my heart because at the beginning of the path, because of previous experiences, I remember thinking, yeah, if I practice ABC, then that's going to equal D, enlightenment, to realize what I am. I really felt and thought that I can do certain actions, certain things that will allow me to achieve enlightenment. This was my view, and it was very, very difficult, I must say, that maybe not only for beginners, but even in the middle or in the end of the path, this is something very present because it's how we are used to see life. That are in my path, with the amount of years that I have living, I am used to doing specific things, behaving in certain way to achieve certain result. I know that if I do A, then by A I'm going to achieve C. It's part of our conditioning and the way we live. And Prabhuji actually shares in regards to the mathematic attitude in life, like he's explaining about Aristotle and Heidegger. And I don't want to spoil the surprise. You will have the chance to read about it in his book Being. But what I wanted to say is that, yeah, I was used to doing certain thing to achieve something else. And when you come to spiritual life and being in contact with Prabhuji, this was one of the first things that hits you, that you cannot practice sadhana, you cannot practice spiritual practices and get enlightenment as a result. But what is the sadhana for? To create the appropriate conditions so something of the divine can happen. And this is something that we have discussed throughout our course. We had the opportunity to share it, but today we're going to even get deeper into this attitude towards sadhana. Starting with the book Kundalini Yoga, The Power is in You, we have the third section of the book, which is, and I want to read for you, the sadhana of Kundalini Yoga. And if we go to the table of contents of the book, we have that this section is comprised by purification, practice to open the chakras, techniques to awaken the Kundalini energy, the mudras or seals, and the end of that specific section is the bandhas or locks, because after that we have the epilogue, which is going to be our next and final class. So we have all these things, different techniques that are part of the sadhana of the Kundalini Yoga. So I thought instead of delving into them or explaining them, if you have the book, you already know them. If you don't have the book, it's my recommendation to get it. It's very specific and direct. It has a lot of guidance and instructions, what you can find in this section. So as I said, instead of delving into the specific practices, we're going to learn what is the attitude of the sadhana from the Retroprogressive Yoga. Okay. And we are going to start by reading what we find in the opening of this section. Anyone who decides to begin the path of the serpentine power must take into consideration that it is not a path for mildly interested. It is not advisable to take it up as a hobby, like an after-work activity. The practice of Kundalini Yoga involves a very moderate way of life. This path in particular should not be undertaken without the expert guidance and direction of an authentic spiritual master. Before explaining the practices of this path, I would like to mention that although the techniques are important, they are only part of the basic levels. Practices are beneficial at the beginning of spiritual life, but they are not an end in themselves. They are essential in the beginning, but they can become a serious obstacle if we do not let them go at the right time. Although there are many techniques to visualize chakras, observe breathing, or repeat mantras, we must remember that religious aim is to realize our divine nature, not to turn us into skillful visualizers of chakras, observers of breathing, or repeaters of mantras. Okay, so this is the opening of this section of the book. It's giving us a clear direction on how we can perceive and absorb, digest what is the practice of the Kundalini Yoga path for. First is telling us that that is not a path for the mildly interested, but that involves a moderate way of life. It's something that you undertake to practice your whole life, and that this path in particular not to be undertaken without the expert guidance and direction of an authentic spiritual master. So from the beginning, it's also telling us the importance of the spiritual master for following the practice of this path. Like, this is an essential part in order for us to undertake the sadhana of the Kundalini Yoga. Then continue explaining more about the attitude in regards to practices, it says that even though the techniques are very important, they are only part of basic levels. And it says how practices are beneficial and important, mostly at the beginning of our spiritual path. And it's explaining specifically in regards to certain practices that we find in the path, like observing the breathing, which is pranayama, or chanting specific mantras. And it's not in order for us to be masters of pranayama or professional visualizers of chakra, but the aim of religion is to realize what we really are, which is the aim of Kundalini Yoga. So I feel it's also warning us how practices can be beneficial for a certain time, but they can even become an obstacle. And this is something that we're going to continue discussing more later, how a practice can become an obstacle, but wanted to mention it now. So here we start to see this attitude that it's going to be common in many of the things that we're going to continue reading. And it's going to set the tone and the mood in which we should get closer or to embark in this path of sadhana. I want to continue reading something else that we find in the section where we spoke about the grantees. To whoever didn't see this class, it's very recommended to go there to understand. And maybe it's important that I will mention that we've been together for a long path already. We are towards the end. And there was different topics, different concepts and terms that we've played along the way that we're going to mention today. So we are gathering many things that we learn throughout the course, and we are even giving them more depth and supporting them with this class. So of course, as in many occasions I mentioned, this class is going to have a value. It's going to provide you with a lot of value by itself, but it is going to provide more value to whoever follow the course and so our previous classes. Okay, so as I said, now I want to share something in regards to the grantees. The grantees are the knots, and these knots, what are they doing? They are the ones that they need to open in order for the Kundalini Shakti to continue to ascend. And they are also protecting our spiritual development in the Kundalini yoga path. Because once the Shakti perforates certain chakra that has a knot, because as we know, it's 3 of them, not 7 as the 7 chakras, but they are, one it's in the Muladhara, the first center, the other one it's in the Anahata, and the last one is in the Anya. So what they do, once the Kundalini passes, they are closing to maintain that spiritual development. So they are also keeping our progress. And we're going to hear about it now. The serpentine energy will reach the higher centers only when the knots are transcended. Grantees are valves that, when open, allow Kundalini Shakti to flow. The functioning of these valves is essential to preserve our progress because when they close in the opposite direction, they prevent regression. The sadhana recommended by the master is intended to prepare us to be an instrument in every aspect and to be appropriate receptacles for the truth. This practice has an extremely high energetic intensity. The experience of truth requires an instrument with the proper strength to receive such intensity without the danger of disintegration. So in this A specific part that we're bringing in regards to the sadhana is explaining us how first the sadhana that the master is recommending, like it's coming from the master, from the enlightened being, which, as I mentioned earlier, is essential for the practice that we undertake in any path. And then it says that it's intended to prepare us as instrument, and in order for the receptacles of the truth, it requires a high amount of energy and is very intense. So what the sadhana is doing is preparing us to be these instruments, and this is something that we had the chance to share a few times in the past throughout the course. Then we have another part which is found in the section of the awakening, ascending, and descending of the Kundalini. And this part is specifically in the part of the awakening, and I want us to read. Spiritual evolution is not the result of a practice, techniques, method, or sadhana. Okay, again, we cannot progress, develop, evolve on account or as a result of a practice. However, systematic practice recommended by the guru should not be neglected, because through it we can create the appropriate situation for something divine to happen. Okay, so once again it's telling us we cannot get enlightenment or the fusion of Shakti with Shiva in the seventh center because of a practice, but at the same time, this practice that the guru is recommended shouldn't be neglected, because it's helping us to create the appropriate conditions for something of the divine to happen. There are various ways in which the awakening of Kundalini can occur. The first is a natural awakening that occurs in people who have practiced strict sadhana in past lives. It should be remembered that many souls reincarnate repeatedly both on our planet as well as on others. Those who experience a spontaneous awakening should not be alarmed, but should approach genuine guru who can offer them information about this phenomenon. So I thought it was important to bring that last paragraph that I mentioned. I could just share the first one, but I thought that it was important also because it's sharing once again the importance of the guru, or the role of the guru in what we're speaking about, the sadhana. And it's telling us how the awakening of the Kundalini, if someone had very strict practices in their previous lives, then it can naturally open in this one. And then the person has no idea what to do, where you're speaking about, as I many times frequently mention, this intensity of different energies. And this is why the guru is so important. So it's telling us not to worry, not to worry, and to go and receive the guidance of an enlightened being. And this is very important. That is someone that went through these things and then can guide a disciple. Okay, so this was in the Kundalini Yoga. I want us to continue with the book Advaita Vedanta, Being the Self. And it says, this is what I'm going to read now. It's part of the introduction, so you can see how right away is setting the mood and the attitude towards this path of Advaita Vedanta. That the name of the book is Advaita Vedanta, Being the Self. And then it's speaking about Jnana Yoga. This is the yoga that it's used in order to, or the path in order to realize what we really are. And it says, Jnana Yoga does not aspire to intellectual knowledge, but instead to reject the mind. It uses the mind for a broader evolutionary process. The intellect explores and examines its own functioning. More than a philosophical inquiry, Vedanta promotes self-investigation, a study of the cognitive act in itself. The study of the Upanishads is an important aspect of this path, but it is wrong to believe that erudition is enough to lead us to self-realization. Scriptures, the master's teachings, and sadhana aim to awaken the memory of the disciple. The ego is just forgetfulness or amnesia. This wisdom cannot be instilled the way it is at school, because jnana yoga is not a process of studying, but of remembering who we really are, our true nature. So here we see another, it's bringing another ingredient to this beautiful banquet that we are cooking, if we can call it this way, with what we're bringing, with all the different things that we can find in regards to sadhana in this book. And I'm not bringing everything. For example, in the Tantra book, there is a lot in regards to sadhana, but I picked very specific ones that I felt that I think can enrich what we are studying and delving into today. So in this specific paragraph, we see now the addition that Yoga Vidya, which is that Brahma Vidya, which is the study of the scriptures. Here they are mentioning the word erudition. Erudition alone cannot allow us to reach self-realization, to realize what we really are. But we also need Yoga Vidya, which is the practice, right? This is the aspect of the practice. Instead of focusing only in theory, theology, philosophy, we also need to practice the things that we learn, and how we had our class where we were speaking about knowledge and wisdom, right? To come from knowledge to wisdom. And then this is another part that I felt it's important to emphasize in regards to sadhana. It's also telling us that it's not only practice, it's not only sadhana, but it needs the combination of both. Prabhuji always share with us how both Brahma Vidya and Yoga Vidya are important in our path, in our retroprogressive path. So this is what this part is saying, and I'm going to read another paragraph that I think it's supporting the same. The intellect, due to its proximity to the self, is the highest mental faculty in sentient creatures. Its main functions are to observe, analyze, classify, discern, decide, discriminate, reason, and desire. Only a sattvic buddhi has enough clarity to perceive that which is subtle and recognize his or her conditioning. For this reason, one of the main purposes of yogic sadhana is to create sattva. Okay, so we read again. One of the main purposes of yogic sadhana is to create sattva. So here we have another purpose of the sadhana. And we had our class where we had the chance to delve and to explore more about the gunas. We are mentioning now sattva. We have the 3 gunas, which are tamas, rajas, and sattva. And it's telling us the buddhi, or the intellectual faculties. It's telling us about one of those structures of the mind. We also had our class where we explain more what the mind is made of. If we take the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, we see that the mind it's made out of which is manas, chitta, buddhi, and ahankara. Okay, we have these 4 structures, and this is not the topic of our class, but I just wanted to bring it up so you understand where it's the word buddhi coming from. Buddhi is intellect. So one of those faculties, it's telling us that it's doing all these things: discriminate, analyze, reasoning, desiring. So here it's telling us that this thing that is doing all these functions needs to be sattvic. Prabhuji explains so many times how this is one of the main purposes of sadhana, of what we do, to create sattva. And we learned, when we learned about the different gunas, that in order to transcend them, because this is what we want to finally achieve, because we are influenced by these three modalities, depending on the day, on the time during the day, depending on the actions that we are performing, we are either under the influence of tamas, rajas, or sattva. But the things that we do in the spiritual path are in order to create sattva, and for us to be in the sattva guna, because only from sattva you can transcend all of them and not be influenced by any of these modes. So, and you can only go from tamas to rajas and from rajas to sattva. So it requires certain process, and as I said, in order to transcend all of them, you need to have a, as it says here, a sattvic buddhi. And another of the things that it's telling us is like, in order for you to even realize, to know that you have a problem, this buddhi needs to be sattvic, because you don't even find out or know that there is something that you need to transcend. You cannot even begin this search for or asking these questions like who I am if your buddhi is not sattvic. If it's rajasic or tamasic, then none of these things are going to come out. Or quoting again, only a sattvic buddhi has enough clarity to perceive that which is subtle and recognize his or her own conditioning. So in order for us to recognize this conditioning, our buddhi needs to be sattvic. Okay? And by sadhana, you can create this sattva. So I would like to continue by sharing something that we find in a section of the book where it's speaking about mukti, about liberation, and we have some things in regards to sadhana here too that I would like to share. Liberation is the immediate consequence of the realization of reality and not the effect of our actions, as Mimamsakas believe, okay? Is the immediate consequence of the realization of reality and not the effect of our actions. Sadhana is meant to create the appropriate conditions, but enlightenment is not a result or byproduct of practice. Again, it's setting the right attitude for us to get closer or to practice sadhana. The path to liberation does not entail getting, reaching, acquiring, gaining, seizing, appropriating, or grabbing something we lack, but going after a revelation. The spiritual process is not a series of systematic practices to satisfy needs. No spiritual effort should be carried out from a feeling of lack. Instead of acquiring what we do not have, we should try to discover what has always been. Mukti cannot be obtained because it is our authentic, original nature, what we originally are. Mukti is simply being, without the intervention of the mind and its interpretation. The spiritual process is not about acquiring something, but about getting rid of everything: our conclusions, concepts, ideas, prejudices, and in general, of our acquired conditioning. Enlightenment is not something we obtain, but what remains after our ignorance vanishes. And I want to read again this last sentence that says, enlightenment is not something we obtain, but what remains after our ignorance vanishes. Okay? So I want to bring out to put emphasis to a few things that were shared here. One of them, again, that it's creating the appropriate conditions, but enlightenment is not something that we get as the result of systematic practices. And then it's also setting another view, I think, another part of this attitude that we're building, which is that it's not that we need to acquire something, see something, search for something, but we are kind of debilling something, like we are removing the condition in our interpretations. And this is why it says enlightenment is what remains when we remove our ignorance, when we remove all these obstacles and layers of interpretation, ideas about what we are. And this is why in many occasions we do this emphasis in a wrong belief or illusion, or what I believe myself to be, because it's only a belief, it's an idea of what I really are. But this is also why we many times says to discover what we really are, why Prabhuji says to discover what we really are. It's a discovering. And as earlier we also read in regards to the path of the Jnana Yoga, that it's inviting us, or what it's doing is for us to refresh our memory and to remember what we really are, because we are already what we yearn for. We don't need to get something. And it's important also to understand the difference between obtaining or having something than being something. So it's not that we acquire something, but we remove all the things to realize that we already are what we yearn for. Okay, this was in the Advaita Vedanta, and we are going to continue with the book Bhakti Yoga, the Path of Love. And in this one we're going to be speaking about this realization in regards to love. Bhakti means love, and as we see in the subtitle of the book, The Path of Love, then what we're going to share is speaking about realizing love, which is what we really are too. So in the Advaita Vedanta we spoke about liberation, which fits with that book, and now we're going to be speaking about love in the Bhakti Yoga. Devotion cannot be learned or taught like mathematics or geography. Love is not acquired by practicing a technique, nor is the result of sadhana. Okay, this is the first thing that is telling us here in this section of the book. Rather, it lies concealed and dormant in the depths of all beings. Therefore, it is important to understand the true place and value of spiritual practice. Okay, it's so important to know what is the value and the true place of practice, because as I mentioned earlier, we can embrace and start certain practices but with the wrong perception of why I actually practice. And this is what we're trying to do in this class, to recognize and understand the true value and why we really undertake certain practices. Through sadhana, we create the necessary conditions for awakening devotion in our hearts, and we prepare circumstances in which love manifests itself in all its true glory. So if we put it in just for the path of the Kundalini Yoga, it can be that through sadhana we prepare the conditions in order for the fusion of Shakti with Shiva occur in the seventh center. Okay, but we are having a wider view of the sadhana itself, which is going to vary from path to path. Every path has different sadhanas, but what we're trying to show today is the similarities and the right attitude towards sadhana. Even a sentimental attachment between two human beings needs propitious circumstances. Couples seek romantic restaurants and places that offer favorable situations for enhancing emotional attraction. A young man is not likely to propose to his girlfriend in a smelly garbage dump. In the same way, as long as our mental activity contaminates us with envy, jealousy, resentment, material ambitions, and so on, the emerge of devotion will remain very doubtful. As long as the mind persists with its requirements and demands, trying to control and manipulate everything to meet its expectations, we will continue to confuse love with mundane emotional addiction. The sādhanā recommended by our spiritual master acts like a powerful purifier in devotees and liberates them from all impurities. Sadhana enables us to become vessels of grace, since God can be with us only to the extent that we're able to be with Him. And there are different things that I would like to that I would like us to emphasize in this text. And I'm going to begin with the part of the mind persists with its requirements and demands, trying to control and manipulate everything to meet its expectations. This is something that I would like us to stay with, because very soon we are going to continue speaking in regards to how our expectations are an obstacle for our practice and for what needs to happen will actually happen. Okay, that's one. Also, to see how here again it's telling us how the sadhana is in order to create the appropriate conditions, and it's putting the example even to fall in love, how we create certain conditions. If I'm going to ask someone to marry me, I will not do it in a very ugly place, but I will try to find the best place in order to do something that's so important as to ask someone to marry me. So in this same way, in order for devotion to grow and to develop, it also needs the right conditions. And the last thing that I want to emphasize is in regards that the sadhana enables us to become vessels of grace. Grace is something that we're going to speak very soon when we go to the Tantra. But it's telling us that since God can be with us only to the extent that we're able to be with Him. Okay? And I think this is speaking about reciprocation, which is something that I know it's relevant and important in the retroprogressive path. Reciprocation. God can only be with us as much as we can be with Him. So we are enabling ourselves, preparing ourselves to be able to accept Him. And I can accept Him as He can be with me as much as I can be with Him. And it reminds me this very beautiful story of this old lady that she didn't know when the divine was going to visit her. Like she knew he could visit or she could visit at any time. And because of that reason, she was cleaning her house every day. So by the time that the divine will visit, it was ready. And when the divine appeared, it was ready to receive it. And this is what we're doing with the sadhana. We are preparing ourselves as instruments, as vessels, in order to be receptacles of the truth. Only if we imagine that I'm going to receive the divine in this body, then I want to clean myself, purify myself, and undertake whatever is necessary in order that when that will happen, then this instrument will be appropriate to receive it. This was in the Bhakti Yoga, the path of love, and we are going to continue with the Tantra, liberation in the world. And something that I would like to mention before sharing specifically what we find in the book, is that the sadhana in the Tantra has a very relevant place, like what we hear in regards to erudition and in its, or what I was sharing earlier in regards to Brahma Vidya and Yoga Vidya. We're going to find it also in the Tantra. And something that I want to do is, many of the things that we took was from the section of the book that is related to the practices. And I just want you to know more or less what is this section about. It's the fourth section of the book, and the first chapter is the tantric vision of the human body. Then we have the qualifications and stages for tantric practice. What are the things that you need to have, the requirements in order to undertake this also very sophisticated and demanding practice. Then you have the essential elements of tantric sadhana. And we're going to read very specific things that we find there in the essential elements. And, then you have types of tantric sadhana, and you have tantric ritualism. These are the 5 chapters that you can find in the practice of the tantric sadhana. And we took a few things, but what I wanted to show by sharing what we find in the table of contents of that section of the book is that it really gives a lot of importance, and we're going to continue discovering with the things that I'm going to share. And I want to start by sharing a paragraph that says, aspirants cannot manipulate God, but they can facilitate his revelation by creating the appropriate situation through sadhana. So again, through sadhana, we can create the appropriate situation, but we cannot manipulate God, which is the divine, which is something that we mention frequently throughout our course. This specific term of manipulating, and which is basically what we are trying to do if we think that by doing certain technique, we can reach enlightenment through it. So we cannot manipulate the divine. Then, in another part of the book, we have tantric sadhana is not only intended to prepare the right situation for enlightenment to occur, but it is also meant to unveil the immense physical, mental, and energetic potential that humans beings hold. It offers sadhakas various techniques to uncover and develop their inner power. For this purpose, it deals with physical, mental, and energetic purification through mantras and hatha yoga. The hatha yoga system, it asanas, postures, pranayama, expansion of vital energy, relaxation, and so on, is important to tantric practice. Okay, so here I brought this specific paragraph once to bring again that the only purpose is not for preparing the right, to bring again the part that it's saying that the sadhana is in order to create the appropriate conditions. So here it's saying that it's specifically the tantric sadhana is not only for that, but it's also preparing ourselves as instruments, and it's speaking about our potential as human beings and how the sadhana is enhancing all these different faculties that we have as humans. And it's speaking about the energetical aspect, the physical, the mental. And something else that it's mentioned here that we heard already in different of the books that we just saw, it's about purification. So I thought it was important to bring the purification also to emphasize on it, because we saw it in the Kundalini yoga, and I mentioned it a few classes ago, the view of the purification, that is not that I'm like cleaning myself from something negative or bad, but the purification refers more to getting closer to consciousness, our elevation in our state of awareness. So if we can even speak about a process of development or a spiritual progress, Prabhuji tells us how this is more not related to certain physical distance, because Kikaro peleha davar and I'm laughing because this is something so beautiful from the Hebrew revelation, that the thing is close to you, very close. And when you think about how close it is, or when you check how close it is, it's even closer than that. This is what it's saying, this verse. And Prabhuji explains it in different occasions like this, that I really am, it's even closer than what I think or what I believe. And when I think it's close, it's even closer than that. And so there is no distance between what I am, but there is no actual physical distance, but the distance can be those ideas, interpretations, beliefs. And this is what is covering this, and this is why when we spoke about it in the Advaita Vedanta, is speaking about what remains when you remove. Like I remember also, a lecture of Prabhuji where he's speaking about the spiritual path, and in different situations he speaks about it in regards to destruction, how the spiritual path is destructive. And while I say it, I'm thinking like, yeah, destruction has a very negative connotation. They're going to destroy something, but in different situations is necessary to destroy something in order to build something very beautiful. And the example that he's using is the example of the sculpture that takes a rock, a stone that can be or look very ordinary, and from the things that he's taking, right? He's not adding something. He's taking things, can grow, can develop, or can create something so beautiful, outstanding. We've seen different statues and figures that are created by sculpture that are incredible. So this is what can happen in this process of destruction, if we can call it this way, in the spiritual path, right? We are destroying and removing different things. Okay, so continuing with what we find in the Tantra. Okay, let's see if we can read something else. Yeah, it says, the mind has the power to tie us to the mundane as well as to free us from it. Therefore, Tantric Sadhana aims not to stop the mind, but to direct it positively. Thought can be sublimated on the mental plane. Human beings use only a small amount of their mental capacity. Their greatest potential lies in the subconscious. Traditional Tantric Sadhana aims to awaken this potential. Accepting spiritual mastery is of vital importance, and the initiation marks the entrance into the sadhana world. So this one, I brought it first to understand more in regards to the attitude towards sadhana, and specifically the sadhana of the Tantra, how it's saying like we can reject something, but no, let us use it in a positive way in order to that thing that can be perceived as negative can help us to keep growing and developing in our spiritual path. And the other thing that I want to emphasize about this part is how he's saying about the importance and relevance of the spiritual master, how this is the kind of the key in order to open this door into the sadhana. Then another one says, although the Tantric tradition has a tremendously rich theology and philosophy, achieving its ideals undoubtedly requires practice. Theory helps us to identify our potential, but practice is the means of applying its metaphysical vision. metaphysical vision. Only through sadhana is it possible to access the tantric revelation. So here we see again this combination of Brahma Vidya and Yoga Vidya. Brahma Vidya, the theoretical part, the philosophy, the theology, the erudition. This is very important elements. But we also need to practice. We also need to apply what we are learning. So from Brahma Vidya, Yoga Vidya, and the combination of both. And here it's saying a very important statement. Only through sadhana is it possible to access the tantric revelation. So it's giving a very important place to the sadhana. But at the same time, it clarified how we cannot reach enlightenment through the sadhana, okay? Then in another part we have, practice is indispensable for development in any discipline, okay? So here is speaking more general. To accelerate inner evolution, training is required. Yoga is a training for all spiritual paths. All paths are accompanied by their own yoga. For example, yoga of action, karma, devotion, bhakti, or meditation, dhyana. Similarly, there are tantric yogas such as hatha yoga, mantra yoga, and kundalini yoga. Tantra yoga is the practical aspect of tantra. So here we are putting the attention on the importance of the practice in any path that we want to follow. The last thing that I wanted to share from the book Tantra, it's in regards to Diksha. It's one of the essential parts of the tantric practice. Diksha is initiation, and I'm just going to read it and then we're going to understand why it's so important too. Shaktipata, initiation, is usually associated with divine grace because it is not achieved by being good or by lots of practice. Abhinavagupta says, both Shaktipata and devotion to God are independent of family, caste, body, actions, age, practices, and money. And then Prabhuji continues. Initiation cannot be demanded. It is an act of grace, anugraha, done by the master. Consciousness itself descends through the guru. Grace comes through contact with an enlightened master. However, it is not given by the master, but comes from God. An enlightened master is conduit that is pure enough to allow divine energy to flow and descend. And for me, this part represents a very, very serious situation in our spiritual path. And this path of realizing what we really are, like it's sharing the importance of the spiritual master, okay? It's sharing in regards to the miracle of even receiving Diksha, because it's, okay, so one of the things that are speaking about is the purity of the guru. In like only through this pure instrument, the divine itself can descend, and through that instrument, right, the guru, which is our potential, like the guru already is actualized, it's what we want to become one day. We are the seed as disciples. So he can already be, he has the purity, or she has the purity, so the divine can descend through it. And then it's explaining us this importance of initiation. We in the Tantra and in many of the books of Prabhuji, you will see about the disciple succession, the parampara, how it's the knowledge, the wisdom, more than knowledge. it's passed through guru to disciple, and then that disciple at certain point becomes a guru, and then he can pass this wisdom to another disciple. Okay, like that, disciple succession. Parampara. So it's explaining the importance of Diksha, how this is truly a miracle, because it's not even by the grace of the master, but it's God itself that it's allowing this to happen. So for me, it's representing the miracle of the opportunity that we get, in my case as a disciple, to be able to receive this initiation, and for something so relevant, the most important thing that can happen for me in someone's life occur. So this is what happened through Diksha. And again, I feel it's showing the importance of the master, the enlightened being in our path. It's telling us how this is the entrance to the sadhana. So it's again setting the right attitude, direction that we need in order to undertake any spiritual path, any spiritual practices, sadhana. We are going to continue with the book What Is As It Is, Satsangas by Prabhuji. Something that I want to mention about this specific book is that these are satsangas that were transcribed. So this satsanga, we explained it in a few occasions, but I will share it again. Is this Sanskrit word. Sat means truth and sangha means meeting. So it's meeting with the truth. These were meetings that disciples had with Prabhuji, and he's sharing different topics, and then it was transcribed in this beautiful book. And there is one satsang that is related to the desire, and I'm bringing just a little bit of context so you can understand what we're going to read. And it says, then many people fall into the error of transforming these things, God, truth, freedom, nothingness, the whole, into symbols that again evoke sensations. And here he was speaking how this desire is making us to chase different things, but not even chase the thing itself, but a sensation of it. For the example of love, then a sensation of love, or a freedom, a sensation of freedom, but not the thing itself. So then he continues. They begin to perform different practices, okay, our main topic, to obtain that feeling, and finally fall into the same mechanism that we spoke about earlier, because they relied on the concept that if I desire freedom, I must practice sadhana, meditation, japa, or read books in order to be free, okay? So it's speaking about this wrong conception that we have, that if I practice something, then I will achieve a sensation of. So it's even showing us two mistakes in our conception. First, that we search for the sensation of and not the thing itself, and how we think that by undertaking certain practice, we are going to reach that. And then it says, but the direction is different. You are free by nature. Your essence is freedom itself. Yes to sadhana or practice, but only to make sure you don't forget this. Nothing else. Okay, so it's using the sadhana as a means not to forget that we are freedom, we are love, we are what we yearn for. We already are these things, and then we can practice sadhana to not to forget that we are these things that we are searching for, but not in order to achieve those things. Now I want us to continue our journey to the book Experimenting with the Truth. And this one is a collection of questions and answers. And there was one specific question that I want us to read, where the topic of the sadhana, of the practice, is shared. And it says, you had a mystical experience at a young age. Then, after 32 years of searching, you became enlightened. I would like to know if your enlightenment was a result of your practices. Okay, I would like to know if your enlightenment, what we are discussing, is a result of your practices. And we're going to be sharing about we're not going to read the whole article, but we're going to take a few paragraphs and we're going to share in regards to what we can find here. But something that I think it fits to share now is that I recommend you to go specifically to all of these books and delve into this amazing topic, and specifically into this article that we find in the Experimenting with the Truth. So he begins by sharing. At the age of 8, I had a mystical experience. I had the infinite fortune of being initiated by existence. In the silence of the night, the moon and the stars gave me diksha. Okay, this diksha that we just shared about and how important it is. Prabhuji received it as is beautifully explaining. However, a mystical experience is totally different from enlightenment because you're still present as an observer. Even if you observe the light, whatever is observed is an object, while enlightenment is pure subjectivity. And this is something that we clarify or explain more when we were speaking in regards to the Ajna chakra. We saw there how, even though there is a perception of the divine, there is still a witness and something that is witnessed. So you have a subject and an object, and he is explaining here how enlightenment is pure subjectivity. Then it's that stage where the Shakti fuses itself with Shiva, and then this duality disappears. There is not an object and a subject, but there is pure subjectivity. Sorry. And this is why we were also speaking when in our classes of the Sahasrara in regards to the dissolution of the ego, or the individual becoming the universal. This is what happens in this part. I just thought to make this small parenthesis to explain these words. Enlightenment is always unexpected and accidental. It is not an effect of a cause nor a result of a practice. No methodology can grant it. Jesus, Buddha, Shankara, Moses, and others awakened to reality under various circumstances. If we examine their lives, we will learn that enlightenment was an accident that happened to them in very particular situations. Dancing, singing, walking, sitting quietly, and so on. For some of them, it occurred in the tranquility of their homes, for others in a mountain cave, in the desert, or the forest. Awakening can surprise you anywhere. Just like falling in love, it is the same experience for all. Yet everyone has their own love story. Such a beautiful comparison, like we saw also in the Bhakti Yoga. It's speaking about enlightenment, like falling in love. Yeah, we all fall in love, and it can be the same experiences, but happen in different circumstances. And it's explaining exactly about enlightenment, how it's not that I will follow A, B, and C, certain practice that will have by result enlightenment, but because it was so many different particular situations in which enlightened beings got this realization, then it's not that we can imitate or do something specific in order to reach enlightenment. And then he continues by saying that a spiritual practice or sadhana is not meant for the attainment of moksha, The aim of prayer, hatha yoga, japa, pranayama, and meditation is not to enlighten us. Yoga vidya, which is the practice, creates appropriate conditions for enlightenment. Its purification methods help overcome obstacles or impediments to facilitate the accident of enlightenment. So look with which beautiful term he's referring to enlightenment. An accident. It's an accident. It's not something that I planned. It's not something that I make specific actions in order to get it. But it's an accident. It happens by accident. And we cannot control it. We cannot manipulate it. And it's very wrong to practice a certain sadhana with this attitude. After he continued explaining, and I want to read this specific sentence that says, sleep and love, just like enlightenment, are accidents that simply happen. This is a very famous example that Prabhuji uses many times in regards to sleep, that we cannot force it. I cannot make myself sleep. Or speaking about love, I cannot make someone to love me. But I can prepare certain conditions. I can turn off the light in my room. I can actually lay in the bed, put certain music if I like to sleep with music, and then sleep can occur. But I cannot say 1, 2, 3 and then fall asleep. The same with falling in love. Like I can take someone to different restaurants to play certain romantic music, and you can build the conditions for love to happen, but you cannot force it. And it's the same with enlightenment. So the second part of this article, it's bringing us something very interesting in regards to religions and how they've been trying to commercialize, like it's a institutionalized religion became a business, right? Monetizing, and it's telling us that if you do certain practice, then you receive certain things, and this is at the same time making us in manipulators and opportunists. And remember, as we already heard many times today, we cannot manipulate the divine. So it's basically, as it says here, a business. I would like to read this last paragraph that it says, religion is unveiling our true existence in the reality of the present. Okay, it's setting the right mood towards religion. If the practice is aimed at some goal, it projects us toward the future. So it's bringing us another of the obstacles in the way that we perceive practice, because if we think it's something that it's going to be in the future, something that I'm going to get, it's taking us to the future, and enlightenment happens in the present. Okay, it says any sadhana that seeks enlightenment, as elevated as it may be, distracts us from the present moment. So the only alternative is to create favorable conditions and cultivate the art of waiting properly. Not expecting something in particular, but transforming ourselves into unconditional waiting. There is nothing left to do but to meditate with great trust in life. In the right moment, a ray of light will illuminate your soul. In that fatal divine accident, you will perish as someone to be reborn as the whole. So this last paragraph is also setting the direction to the last thing that we're going to share, which is in regards to waiting and becoming an unconditional waiting. So I'm going to share a few words in regards to an article that it's called Waiting, which we can find in the book I Am That I Am. And we're going to finalize with the same topic in regards to the waiting from a lecture of Prabhuji that it's called Waiting with Open Doors. So I think this is my humble opinion, the peak of why we practice something which is not waiting, but becoming unconditional waiting. And I want to share in regards to this article. It was a question, and then we're going to see what is the answer. The question is, in my meditation practice, sometimes I feel that I can sit and humbly wait in silence for the rest of my life. At other times, I feel that waiting is a waste of time and I just want to get up. Dear Prabhuji, is this impatience due to my lack of trust? And the answer says, the demand in our heart confirms the presence of an egoic will. We resist because we think we know what the process is like. If events do not meet our expectations, we become impatient, frustrated, and at some point even disinterested. When we lose enthusiasm, we return to the meaningless routine of mundane life in search of trivial pleasures. While we wait, we begin to doubt we will ever be blessed with enlightenment. Egoic demands prevent us from seeing that what we're waiting for has already happened. However, to realize this, it is essential to be humble and not have requirements. So here it is giving us another key, and it's telling us how just the fact of having certain expectations, like if I have certain expectations from even the practice that I'm undertaking, this is completely an obstacle for something of the divine to happen. First of all, it's revealing my existence as an egoic entity, because if there is another will besides the one of the divine, then I am there as an ego. And the other thing is that as we read here, it's preventing us from seeing that what we are waiting, right? We are in the waiting, has already happened. While I maintain my expectations and my demands, this is not allowing me to see that what I'm actually waiting happened already, which is something that we many times refer to, how we already are what we yearn for. But there are certain things that are preventing us from seeing it. And this is what we do in this with these spiritual practices. And then it says that to realize it is essential to be humble and not to have any requirements. To trust in life, as we heard already. And yeah, like there are no other ways but to trust in the divine in life, that whatever happens is as it's supposed to be, and to remove all requirements and all expectations. Towards the end of this specific chapter, there is something that I want to read, that we are also going to find it a very similar example to refer and to express what unconditional waiting is, that I really like. And it says that it's in regards to a carriage. A carriage is a horse-drawn vehicle with a frame, usually of wood, that runs on 4 wheels. It is a means of transportation and a material object, so it has no will of its own. The driver decides when to travel and when to stop. If the driver wishes, it will travel long distances. If not, it will remain stationary for as long as necessary. In its waiting, the carriage has no expectations or demands whatsoever. Many have the ambition to do great things in their lives, to be entrepreneurs, politicians, experts, or professional. However, the Baal Shem Tov refers to something really great, the aspiration to surrender to the whole and to be a simple carriage guided by existence. Genuine meditation is a waiting with the tranquility of those who have placed their will in the hands of God. Meditating means silently waiting like the carriage. It does not know what it is waiting for or what the driver's plans are. Without demands, divine waiting empties us of all that is known. The same patient waiting is the means to manifest what is real and authentic in us. So this text is introducing to us, sharing, inviting us to become this unconditional waiting and explaining us what are the different obstacles to achieve this unconditional waiting and how the great thing is to actually put ourselves in the hands of God, that it will be His will, not mine. In Spanish, que sea su voluntad y no la mía. We have this very beautiful verse in the Bible, to be His will and not mine. And then this beautiful example of the carriage, how it's in the hands of the driver, and we want to put ourselves in the hands of God, so He's the one driving and we just follow the will of the driver, the will of the divine. This is everything from for today. I hope with this you have a better view of the attitude towards sadhana in the retroprogressive yoga. In our next class, it's our final class. We're going to be discussing and exploring together about the epilogue of the Kundalini yoga. And as always, thank you very much for sharing with us today. Jai Prabhuji.
What do you think from all the things that you practice and learn and experience help you to reach back the experience of enlightenment?
The problem is that your question comes from already assumptions that you take as facts. Your question is wrong, the place from the assumptions from where your question comes. You come from the assumption that what I did helps me in some way or other to what? It's like something of what I did was the solution to a problem. So it's totally wrong, the assumptions in what you base your question. You understand what I mean? Mm. Check your question, your answers before you make questions and look answers from me. Mm. Because your question comes from your answers. Nothing can help you because it's not need in that sense that something you do or helps you. You don't need a solution because you are the solution. You are the solution, yeah.
I think to ask it in a different way because it came up when you said that the experience can come to someone that his tool is not ready. And I was like surprised and I asked you, can it really? You said, yeah, even to an 8-year-old. But what brought you back was the fear. So those years until the experience came back again, there was some preparation of the tool in order to be able to not to go out of it when it comes again, let's say, like that. Like the importance of the preparation of the tool and which direction to take.
Yeah, but what you call preparation is more like a waiting only. Waiting, nothing else. And what you call preparation is your way to wait, how you wait. You can wait in a very intelligent way, you can wait in a stupid way. So it's more, Yoga Vidya is more the art of waiting properly. And it's not something you do, it's more like a quality. To be open, to be available to it. The car stand outside and wait for you. And in that way, that is what the Judaism call Maaseh Merkava, to become a Merkava. That is what you can do to become a Merkava, to make yourself a car outside waiting for you. You have the key. Whenever you will need it, you will go to the car, open the door, sit, move. Wherever you go, you have your goal. The car, what he can do in order to make it, or you come sooner or you come later, he cannot do nothing. The car, the only thing can do is to wait and to be there at the moment you will need it. We say, Sheyeh Ratzono, let be his will. Yes, when existence will need you enlightened, you will be enlightened. Not a moment before. And you need only to wait. What you can do, wait. But wait open, with your doors open, accessible. Put down your defenses. That is what you can work, but that is not something that will make enlightenment come before, because it's not something that comes, it's your recognition. At the moment you will be waiting, and an unconditional waiting, not waiting that this happens sooner or later this week, or not with deadlines. Yoga Vidya is when you become waiting. All of you is waiting, and that is your life. What is the issue of waiting? In Judaism, for example, we have this big thing that is waiting to the Messiah. Sometimes looked at more important than the Messiah is that you wait for it. Rambam say that in the other world, the first thing you will be asked, if you wait for the Messiah. It's like waiting is the thing. When you become an unconditional waiting, you are ready to wait forever. Doesn't matter. Then, when you close your eyes and you meditate, Sheyeh Ratzono, let it be His will, His will, His will. Aseh Ratzoncha Keratzono, make your will His will. Then, nothing will happen. It's not that something will come. But when you touch that point, what will happen is a recognition. You will pay attention what you're waiting for was already there. And that is what happens when I become 38 years old. It's not that something happens, something new. It's more the recognition that what you look for was already there. You look for the water in the ocean. You look for your house, your address at home. But that is the happening. It's not something external that is added to you. It's not that you wake up with something new. No. I was a child that I like games. And that is the reason that what happens to me, all of you know, because I create a game. I imagine that I am a driver inside the car and my body is a car. For like 6 months I play that. Oh, it's a game. And I think during my life I play different games as a child. One of them is very beautiful. It's like ignore every object. There is a table, ignore it. A house, ignore it. Ignore any object. Don't let any object attract your attention. But then, the body is an object. So don't let the body attract your attention. Ignore it. But ideas are objects, small objects, ignore them. And feelings, emotions, ignore them. How the world is without objects? How you feel without objects? What is the feeling without objects? And then add another step. You as a subject. How can be life before you come to this world and after you go? How will be the world without you as a subject? Imagine, how is the world without you? So ignore the subject and look. No object, no subject, no duality. Nothing to look for, and nobody look for something. You are there. Nowhere to go and nobody to go. Amen. Games I play in my life. Okay.